And I guess I looked upset because an Irish nun came over and said, "Are you all right, dear?" I can't do the accent. And I went, "Well, actually, I'm a journalist from Canada, and I can't get anybody to answer my telephone calls. My editors are expecting something about the Vatican. I don't know what I'm going to do." And so she said, "Oh, well, this is the person you should speak with." And she took a little piece of Vatican kind of note paper. So it had the little thing across the top. And she wrote the woman's name. And she said, "Show this to the man at the gate," which is the Swiss guards, "and go and talk to her and see if she can help you."
Okay, everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have a Canadian that escaped to the U.S., but we always let her come back. Herdman Shapiro is here with me today. We're going to be talking about Kim's book. She's got many great books, and she has stories for days that will shock, inspire you, make you laugh, make you question things in life. Kim's here to talk today. Kim Herdman Shapiro, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Dave, for having me. And what an introduction.
What? See? Is that how you wrote it out? I did it word for word.
No, I actually added more, but you cut that out.
I cut that out. Okay. All right. We'll add in more during the edit. It's awesome.
There we go. Good.
Yes, you escaped Canada. Are you being held captive? Okay, just nod to me or blink or something. Are you okay? Like you're okay in the U.S.?
I'm okay.
Okay, I see hand signals. Okay, you're okay?
Yes,
right.
yes.
Just hold up a little sign if you need any kind of rescue from a Canadian to come get you.
I may need Smarties and Coffee Crisp.
Oh, see that? Yes, Smarties and Coffee Crisp. What else? A little Tim Hortons, maybe?
Tim Hortons, yes. What's fun is that a lot of the British things that we have in our stores, like bird's custard and stuff that I grew up eating, those are all exotic international things down here.
So, you see, you're exotic and international. Look at you. Look at you. And during the podcast or at any time, are we going to say niche or niche? What do you want to do?
Niche.
Okay, see, there you go. Now, we just started a war right there because I know there's a lot of my U.S. friends who laugh at me when I say niche, but they spell niche. They spell niche as niche, but they pronounce it niche. And I'm like, that's I don't know. Anyways.
And have you also, a lot of people say here, you say about weird.
About?
But I don't say a boot. I don't know anybody that says a boot in Canada. So I'm going, no, it's about like the way that I occasionally I will get people who say, "Oh, you have a little bit of an odd accent." But I don't think it's really, unless you go to more isolated, you say you go to the deep southern states or maybe you go to northern Maine and stuff, the accent is pretty uniform. So
okay. So I don't want to cause any troubles with our American friends at all because you're there and I want you to be safe. So so you escaped Canada. Tell us like where you are in this in the US then.
I live in a small New England village called Amherst, New Hampshire.
Nice.
And we're about 45 minutes from Boston and about 4 hours from New York City.
Nice. Beautiful.
So my kids got somewhat the kind of childhood that I had, which was that it's very safe where we are. Crime is, I don't know how many times I've accidentally left my bag in shopping carts and gone back in and people have handed it in at the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's very, very kind of small town Americana.
Yes.
And the lovely thing about that is that people do trust their neighbors. People do talk. My kids could go out and play on the street and I wasn't desperately worried that something would happen. So, it's nice. It was a nice way for them to grow up.
Nice. Okay. So we talked earlier in a pre-chat, you have an amazing writing career and you've done a lot of amazing things in your past and leading up into becoming an author and writing your own books. Can you talk a little bit about what you did before you started writing your own works?
Um, well, I had, like a lot of people, a whole bunch of odd jobs to try and get myself through university and all of that. But while I was at university, UBC, I actually went into the newspaper and said, "You're not writing very many reviews about children's books.
Mm.
Why?" And the editor wasn't there. Of course, I went in and said, "Well, I'll just speak to the editor, like,
Yeah.
the prime minister or something." And and the person I spoke to said, "Well, do you have a sample of what you think would be good?" And I said, "Sure, sure." So I gave him just a sample book review. And what I was hoping was that maybe I might get the occasional chance to do a book review or something like that. And before I managed to get back home, the editor had arrived. And of course, back then, in those dark ages, we didn't have cell phones. So she'd actually called and left a message saying, "Can you get back here now?" And
Wow.
I was like, "Okay." Turn around, head back out, get in there. And she said, I said, "Oh, so you want me to do some book reviews?" And she said, "Oh, no, we're giving you your own column. When can you start? And can you go over there and brush your hair so we can take a photo?"
Wow, that was okay. That was a good sign right there.
Yeah. So that was, in many ways, that was that kind of classic lucky break
Yeah.
that, got me into the world. And then I kind of took it from there. I went on to do a lot more travel writing. I did feature travel writing. And then I started a syndicated travel column that was in, I think it was around 30, 40 newspapers across the United States and Canada.
Hmm.
And it was called Traveler's Notebook. But basically what it was a lot of travel writing is based in, go to this museum and it's open at these hours and that kind of thing. And I wanted to make something far more personal because that's kind of my writing style.
Yeah.
And so I placed myself in situations which I thought would kind of illuminate a different area. So, for instance, in the Gaeltacht region of Ireland, I actually dug up the last remaining only Gaelic speaking Irish storyteller,
Wow.
who was an elderly lady at that point, but who remembered the times when there was no radio, there was no television. The women would sit around the fire and tell ghost stories.
Mm.
So I felt that those kind of stories really gave people a different, interesting taste of different places around the world.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I also just got lots of trouble, which also makes good copy.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that led to one of the books that we talked about. And you had Gelato with somebody. Well, the title of the book talks about it, but can you talk a little bit about Gelato and getting in trouble? There's something happened there, a story that I'd love everyone to hear because it made me laugh.
Well, part of the issue was, in fact, when I redid Gelato with the Pope and put out a new issue about, I think it was about 5-10 years ago, I said the world now is very different than it was then. Now we have, internet and cell phones and all this access. Back then, basically, it was feet on the ground, talking to people, calling people on the telephone, trying to get interviews. And I was in Italy in August, where everybody leaves the cities and goes to either the mountains or mainly the beaches. And I needed a story. And I wanted to do a story on the Vatican. So I tried to speak to people. I could not get anything. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? The publishers, the editors are going to be expecting something. I don't know what to do. So I went into one of the little kind of touristy shops that sells postcards and stuff. And I guess I looked upset because an Irish nun came over and said, "Are you all right, dear?" I can't do the accent.
Yeah.
And I went, Well, actually, I'm a journalist from Canada, and I can't get anybody to answer my telephone calls. My editors are expecting something about the Vatican. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so she said, "Oh, well, this is the person you should speak with." And she took a little piece of Vatican kind of note paper. So it had the little thing across the top. And she wrote the woman's name. And she said, "Show this to the man at the gate," which is the Swiss guards, "and go and talk to her and see if she can help you." But of course, I have no security clearance to get through any of this.
No. Yeah, right.
And this was well before 9/11, when obviously security got a lot tighter everywhere. Yeah. So I tried to get in, and the one Swiss guard kind of said no. And then I went to the other side and I tried another Swiss guard. And he was kind of a little confused, but he's looking at the paper with the header on the top that said the Vatican and everything. And so he actually let me in. And so I went from being out in the masses of the square through a gate into this very surreal, quiet, beautiful, historic world that was, like stepping back several centuries. And it was gorgeous. And it only lasted about 50 minutes before they caught me. But they did. They were very nice when they caught me. The security guards caught me and said, "We don't see any security pass for you to be here," which of course I didn't have.
Yeah.
And I showed my paper, and the paper wasn't that important to the security guards.
No.
So I did get ushered out of the Vatican, but the cool part of it was I got a fascinating column out of it, what it was like to go through that experience. And then just to wander in the Vatican gardens is incredible.
And that's not something that all of us are going to have the opportunity to do. So living vicariously through you got to give us a little bit more information. What did you see? Like, I need to know some facts. Like, what was it?
Well, you kind of go in and, like, for instance, I didn't initially know what the buildings were. I had to kind of go back afterwards and try and figure out. But there was Nero's Circus.
Okay.
It was actually part of the area that I was in. There was this ancient building which had been there since, basically the dawn of the Catholic Church. And at this point was being used as a hostel for German priests. But to just walk by these buildings and, it's like, this is the everyday thing here. This is where they live. This is their world, where the history goes back 2,000 years.
Wow.
Is incredible. It's incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah. And so, it must be, I'd be looking over my shoulder the whole time going, why, how did I get in here? Oh no, I'm in too deep. Yeah. So
yes.
I think you were mentioning there was gardens and things as well.
There was gardens. It was then paths going around, and that's where all the offices are.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's also beautifully landscaped. There are all these small gardens, and I could see in the kind of the background. I didn't get far enough into. There is a main garden back there.
Yeah.
But if you've been in Rome, it's busy, it's noise, it's cars, it's, mopeds, scooters honking all the time. And it did have this kind of surreal feeling of walking from the square, which is packed with tourists, and kind of going through. And then there's just the occasional, somebody who works there, or a priest or somebody walking by. And I'm basically trying to hide so people don't see that I'm there. But I think what struck me the most was the peace of it.
Yeah.
How still and beautiful and quiet it was, because of course it hasn't been developed in the way that the world on the other side of the gate has been. It's kind of stuck in time, which is beautiful.
Amazing. So what happened when you reached back out to the editor with this story? What did they say?
They loved it. They felt, I believe their favorite was the one where I was at the tripping of the colors and I needed to go to the bathroom. And a very sweet but foolish Bobby because of the security, I had a press pass to get in, and because it was actually the rehearsal of the Trooping of the Colors, but it was full of dignitaries, and it was a big deal thing. The security was fairly intense, and I said to the police officer, "You don't have any, porta potties or toilet?" And he says, "No, you have to go out and then go to St. James Park and then come back through security." And I said, "That's going to take forever. It's literally just across the road." And I don't know what he was thinking. I'm sure it didn't do his career any good, but he said, he kind of looked, he says, "Take a run for it." And I did not get very far. I did not get very far before I am just down on the pavement, people on top of me. And the more senior London Metropolitan Police officer comes over, is like, "What is going on?" And I'm just like, "I just have to go to the loo. Can I just go to the loo? I just have to go." So eventually they searched me, made sure I wasn't carrying any explosives. Of course, everybody in the stands is watching this.
Yeah, no.
But they gave me a police escort with the dog to the washroom, the restroom, and then walked me back, so I didn't have to go through security again. But the editors loved that because they got to use the header on it, which was "Kim meets her Waterloo."
Oh, I love it. I love it. Amazing. So where was the transition then to start writing your books, from writing for your editor and writing for all the stories you're doing? Where did you jump into then saying, "I want to compile these things," or start writing my own works and doing that as an author?
Well, the world was changing a lot in the early 90s. And sadly, my father had terminal cancer and my mother was a nurse, and I do have some first aid background. So I promised my father that he wouldn't have to go into hospital. As much as we could, we'd keep him at home until he passed away. So that ate up about 18 months of my life. Mm. And when you're in that, you're not creative. You're just, you're trying to think of different things to distract somebody, and you're trying not to think of where this is going, and, all that kind of stuff. So I came out the other side of it and kind of went, okay, now I'm going to go back to my career. Well, at this point, the internet had kicked in and things were changing in the journalistic world.
Right.
Because there was this whole new possibility of an online presence and what that would mean for sharing information, sharing stories. And so I made the decision then that I was going to go and do some TV work. And I did that. And at the same time, I said, I've got to diversify my writing. So I'm going to write the story behind Gelato with the Pope.
Okay.
That's how that started. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So tell me, what was the response when people got that and started reading it? What did you hear back from readers when they got that?
I think people enjoyed it. I think the nicest thing was chapters, which I guess is now Chapters Indigo, or is it Indigo Chapters or something? I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Chapters. I did a talk at the main branch downtown Toronto. I'm not sure whether it's Yonge Street but they put a little poster up advertising the talk, and they said something along the line of, "Kim is a wonderful Canadian ambassador to the world."
Nice.
Which I thought was very, very nice. It was lovely. And it was lovely doing the book tour and actually having people, come up, because not everybody even had email back then. Coming up and saying, "Wow, this is so cool. I lived through reading. My life is rather simple. And so I live vicariously through what you do and what other writers do and other experiences." So she said, "It means a lot to be able to actually talk to you," which was very touching, which I thought was very sweet, and thought, well, you could talk to me anywhere. You can talk to me in the grocery store. I don't think it's that fascinating to talk to me, but it was important to see how writing reaches people.
Yeah.
I had a press interview a few weeks back, and they actually asked me, "Are you in this for the money or the fame?" And I said, "What money are you talking about?" But I said, unless you're a really high profile writer, you're not in this for the money. You're not in this for the fame. You're in this because it means something to transport somebody else to another world for a little while.
Yeah.
When even if they need a break or they're struggling or something, for them to be able to read something you wrote and enjoy themselves and have a break, that's an important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your most recent book. Can you tell us about that and kind of the story behind this?
Sure. My most recent book is my first fiction, and that's The Raven's Cry. And it's the first book in the Winter Island mystery series,
Okay.
which is based in the Gulf Islands of British Columbia.
Nice.
So what's fun is my publisher's American. I live in the United States. And so people are like, Gulf Islands? Where's that?
Yeah.
And they just kind of say it's kind of off northwest up there in that vast Canadian wilderness or something. But yeah, it is a mystery based on, not surprisingly, a journalist who goes through trauma while she is working in Afghanistan. And then a broken romance, and she makes the decision to try and start a new life for herself. And so she accepts a job running a small community TV station in a non-existent, I created a fake Gulf Island, and arrives there only to find the dead body of her ex-boyfriend waiting for her.
Dun, dun, dun. You can just feel it, right?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
And of course, she's the only one who has any connection to him at all. Right. And so she not only has to prove her innocence, she also wants to solve the mystery of his murder because she cares for him.
It sounds like a CSI episode almost. That's great. Amazing. So where was the beginning point for you to create the story? Was there something that kind of gave you the idea to even go down this path?
It sounds odd, but I had a dream. And in the dream, it was the basic outline of the basics of the story, not the murder, but just the basics of the story. And it stuck with me over the years. And I've stepped away from writing for a good 20 years because I have my two sons to raise. But it's been there at the back of my mind, and I've always loved reading mysteries. So I thought, why don't I take that setting and put it into a mystery? So a dear friend of mine, she said, what murder are you going to think? And I said, well, I have murder 1, murder 2, murder 3. Which do you like? And she chose murder 3, which is the one that I used in the book. So that's how the story ended up that way.
So for a new author that's thinking about writing in this style, any thoughts from your perspective that could help them in the early days of writing? What would we tell them?
What I would tell them is the best thing that you can do is to join writers' organizations.
Okay.
The thing that is great, I'm a board member in Sisters in Crime New England, which is Sisters in Crime is the second largest writers' organization in the United States, I believe internationally. But the thing that's great about it is that you get access to other people that are going through the same thing that you're going through.
Okay.
You also get access to people who've already been there and who can kind of point you in the direction. And, it's not their job to raise you up, so to speak. But the reality is most people, if you honestly ask a question, do I need an editor? What do I do next? Most people will say, okay, well, I would recommend XYZ. And you're getting that from the horse's mouth. You're getting that from people that have actually lived through it, which gives you the support to keep going. It gives you knowledge. And it just is networking. It's just making connections. It's amazing how, somebody will suddenly say to you, oh, I heard this publisher is looking, or I've heard this agent is looking. I think your work might fit. Why don't you give them an email? And it's those small little steps, which don't really necessarily take a lot of effort on somebody else's part, but having that connection kind of greases the wheel.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know. And so have a group of people around you to kind of give you that direction and guidance really does come in handy for sure.
Exactly. And the thing is that writing is also a relatively lonely pursuit.
Right.
So you spend a lot of time alone. It's good to have other writers to complain with and to commiserate with when you get the umpteenth rejection letter. And the statistics, I don't know exactly, but I've heard that, 95% of people that start a book never finish it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And of those who finish it, it's like 0.5% who actually end up getting it published or something like that. So it's my book is 79,000 words. The average fiction book is between 70 and 90,000 words. So that's a lot of work to do on your own.
Yeah.
You need some contact with other people that understand what you're going through. And so that's what I would recommend.
Did you have a group like that for all of your writings when you started writing as an author?
I was part of a writing group earlier when I was in Vancouver. So I already had a sense. That's when I was at university. So I already had a sense there of how important it could be. And before I had even totally written The Raven's Cry, I reached out to writing groups here because I knew that they would be able to answer some of my questions, which is, where do I find a good freelance editor? How do I find somebody who'll have a look at this for me and tell me, even if they read just one chapter, will tell me whether I'm onto something good or I'm totally off the track. So I'd say the aspect of the social aspect and connections is really important. The other thing I would recommend is try to listen to criticism without allowing your heart to get crumpled. That is, I just wrote a blog post for a mystery writing website, and it was about becoming a mystery author at an advanced stage, whatever you want to say. And at the end of it, I made the point that, if I'd had the success with this book, say 20 plus years ago, would I have listened to the criticism that helped me create a better book? Or would I have gotten very angry and said, they don't realize the masterpiece they have in front of them,
Exactly.
But at this point, and the thing is, my book did take 2 years of editing, revisions, changing, to get it to a point where not only is it universally liked, but it's also, it also fits what people are interested in reading now. Because you might be able to write like Robert Louis Stevenson, but people don't necessarily want to read that in a modern novel. So there are all those different pieces that you need to be bouncing off other people to try and get a sense of where you should go.
So being a Canadian author in the U.S., what else is your superpower? What do you bring by having two different perspectives?
I would say that the great thing that being a Canadian, and this is going to probably sound terribly immodest actually it will sound immodest to Canadians as well, but we have a tendency to be very modest people. But it is the fact that we listen well. we talk to people, but we listen. We are great for not taking up all the oxygen in the room, and instead, not being in the background. That's not fair, but in the sense of seeing what other people are doing, observing, listening, talking to people, and listening to what they have to say. I think those are really important things to learn from. And also bringing with that, to a certain degree, that modesty in the sense of, I don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that all Americans feel that they do know everything, because they don't, but Americans are a very proud people and have an incredibly strong sense of self-confidence that the rest of the world kind of goes, oh, I wish I felt like that. And it's important here to kind of step back and go, I'm not going to compete with that. I'm just going to listen and observe and see what I can learn.
What do you think a Canadian author could learn from their U.S. author counterparts?
Oh, that's an easy one.
Okay.
That's an easy one. And that is how to try and make your voice heard in a room. I have friends and family who say I've always been kind of like this, but I've definitely gotten more this way since I've been living in the United States for so long. But they find me very in their face as compared to the person that they once knew.
Really?
And that, I think, is part of that. Americans, the great thing about Americans is they'll stand up and they'll say, I think my product is really good, and here's why. We're not as good at doing that in Canada.
Yeah.
We're much more, oh, that seems really boastful, and that seems kind of rude, and I don't, yeah. And unfortunately, I don't, not just in writing, but I think in whatever you do in life, you succeed by what you do with your work, but you also succeed by how you manage to sell your work, whatever that is. That's writing or something else. Yeah. And we're not good at selling ourselves in Canada, I don't think, because we just kind of go, well, we're nice and kind of polite and a little quiet.
Yeah. We're more of a supportive role.
Yes.
And our American neighbors are very good at promotion. Just check out a Sunday football game. They do promotion well. Very, very well.
They do. And with that, it does mean that you have to push. That does mean that you, I was at a panel with some podcasts, some American podcasters, and they were saying they're stunned by the number of writers that send in a request to be interviewed, but never bother to try again if they don't hear anything immediately back. And I think that's part of it, which is you don't want to be rude, but there is a certain amount, if you want to present yourself and promote yourself, you've got to work at it. You got to try. And, I think the Americans are very good at doing that.
That's a good universal idea for all authors. When we get to the promotion stage of our book, right, is, I don't want to be too salesy. I don't want to, you need to be proud of what you've done, and you need to get it out in front of people, and that takes effort. It's not going to happen. They're not going to come to you and ask you about your book. You got to go to them in most cases.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And you've got to go to them, and you've also got to convince them that your book is worthy of their time.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, not just Canadians, but for a lot of people to kind of stand up and go, look at how great I am. That's really, really difficult for people to do.
Yeah.
And I understand, because if you did that in their everyday life all the time, you drive people nuts. But when you're trying to sell something, you need to be able to promote yourself.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great lesson for all of us, I think. For the authors that are listening, then again, join up in with a group, surround yourself with other people that can help you. Get out there, promote your stuff. What else can we leave them with that's a way to inspire them to either start writing or continue the journey of writing?
There are actually a lot of fantastic resources for writers that are available online now that I think a lot of writers are not aware of. So, for instance, the organization that I'm familiar with, Sisters in Crime, we do, well, our particular chapter does multiple times a year webinars. The national chapter does webinars.
Okay.
We actually bank our webinars and have them on our site. So if you at a later date want to go back and rewatch it. But the thing that's great about them, about all these things, is they're absolutely free.
Nice.
You can be, and I have actually, we had a one with a lovely woman who's considered the poison lady. She's a chemist based out of Texas, and she's known as being the most famous in mystery writing circles, that she's the person you go to find out how to kill somebody with poison and not get caught.
Wow. That's on a resume. That'd be great.
Well, in fact, in the webinar that we did, I did actually ask her about that. And she said she has, because newspapers, she's so well known for this kind of thing that she does, that newspapers have come and interviewed her. And then, unfortunately, one of them, the journalist asked her, what is a seamless way to kill somebody? And she told him, and they published it. And I believe she teaches at Texas A&M University, or at least she used to, I think. And she got in trouble for that. They were not happy with that she'd done that.
No, wow.
But the interesting thing about that was I had some emails from, we have, as long as you're a Sisters in Crime member anywhere in the world, you can look at these webinars when we put them on. But I had somebody from, I don't know where it was, Bozeman, Montana or something. And she emailed me and she said, the thing is, I don't have access to these kind of people where I live. She lives a rather isolated, part of the country. She said, since I don't live in New York or Chicago or Seattle or wherever, she says, for me to be able to watch this webinar and actually ask questions of some of these specialists in the mystery writing field, specialists in, CSI stuff, and, as far as how to use guns and all those kind of things, she said, this is invaluable to me.
Right.
And I think a lot of writers are not aware of the fact that there's a lot of that stuff out there that they can access whenever they want.
Excellent. So for Sisters in Crime, how do people connect with that? I'm sure there are going to be people interested in that as well.
Yeah, the thing with Sisters in Crime in America, we also have Mystery Writers of America. In Canada, I believe it's, oh boy, the Crime Writers Guild. I'm not totally sure. But you basically join the national organization, which is a relatively small sum, I think $40, $50. And then you join your local chapter, which for us, I believe is $25. And that will get you a year's membership. That will get you access to all of this stuff, and also access to, we haven't done a lot of live events, but we're hoping to get back to that after COVID.
Yeah, good.
But, I think you can believe that because you don't perhaps have a lot of money to throw at something, that you can't accomplish anything. And there are a lot of ways to reach out and connect and get information to help yourself become a better writer that don't necessarily involve a lot of money.
And for those authors that are feeling lonely and they're looking for community, that sounds like a great answer to all of that we talked about already.
Yes. And I know that the Sisters in Crime has a Facebook web group called Guppies, and I believe other writer organizations do as well.
Yeah.
And it is purely for people who have never been published, who have always wanted to write a mystery. And you'd be surprised at the number of people who will say to me, I've always wanted to write a mystery, but I just never seem to do it. And that's the group for them. They have an online presence and they can say, I don't even know where to start. I want to do a mystery about this person in this setting. Can somebody point me in the right direction? And just those little bits of support, because those are moderated by people who actually do have a lot of experience, is wonderful for new writers.
Amazing. So if you're a budding new mystery writer, the mystery has been solved. Here's your community. You can now be a part of this. We've cracked the case.
Yes.
We've figured it all out.
Yes.
Roll the credits. It's all done. Yes, right? I love it. I love it. Okay, so Kim, again, how do we connect with you? I know I have the books up here online in front of me on the screen, so they're available on Amazon. Where else can we find all your works?
The best place is to go to my website, which is kimhshapiro.com.
Good.
And everything can be linked from there. And they can find out a lot about other things that I've been doing career-wise. But the books are available on Amazon around the world. They're available. The ebook is available on Chapters. They're available in Barnes & Noble in the United States. And then they're available at select bookstores. So if you don't want to use Amazon or one of the big companies for whatever reason, then all you need to do is go in with the title to your local independent bookstore and they can order it in for you.
And are you still giving tours of the Vatican?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was going to sign up for that if you were still doing the tours.
No. Now that my children are grown and off at university, now my time is taken up with my 3 dogs. So
there you go.
That is one thing that people will find in the Raven's Cry is that I love dogs. And so I have a dog character in all of my books.
Nice.
Yes, which are much more well-behaved than my dogs are.
I love it. I love it. Kim, thank you for making time for us. Thank you for sharing your stories, being tackled on the way to the washroom and sneaking your way into the Vatican. Like, it's just so amazing. And I love our conversation today. It was really good. I hope that there's a lot of inspiration for new authors as we chatted. So
I hope so too. And thank you for having me on, Dave. I think it's great for people when they're starting out to kind of go to get that support to think, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Whether it's write a mystery or it's, go on a massive hike or whatever. But getting support to think they can move on in their life is really important.
Yeah. It's amazing. And I love your journey as an author and to kind of see how it all started and what it led to. It's a great journey. And it's more to come, right? Much more to come.
Yes. Oh, when next year, when I have the next book out and more news, I'll reach out to you, Dave, and we can have another chat.
Oh, please. Yeah, the door's open. And I'll have the gelato ready. Okay.
Good.
All right.
Sounds great.
Awesome, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, thank you for being here on Living the Next Chapter. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed having you here on the podcast. Our authors are amazing. I hope you appreciate their time, their effort to make this possible. If you know an author, if you want to recommend an author, that's a good idea. Hey, if there's an author that you really would love to hear about or hear from, if you send me a message, you speak pipe on our website, livingthenextchapter.com, send me an email, go over to livingthenextchapter.com, send us a message. We will forward your message to that author and say, listen, you are being requested to be on Living the Next Chapter. Our audience can't wait to hear from you. You can help shape the show. Yeah, you. You could do that right now, actually. You got a minute, right? Okay, how about you do that? livingthenextchapter.com. I'll see you over there. Recommend an author. Yeah. See ya. Thanks.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.